I'm Tom Rothman of 20th Century Fox. Welcome to Fox Legacy. We're glad to have you with us. I first met Ang Lee in 1993, although I likely should have met him sooner. Here's how the story goes. Ang and I were both born in 1954. Me, in the Jewish confines of Northwest Baltimore, as we called it, made famous by Barry Levinson in Diner, Tin Men, Avalon, and other films. Ang, a world away in Pingtung, Taiwan, and yet our roads converged, however unlikely. Ang grew up in a middle-class academic household. His father had fled mainland China during the revolution when the communists executed the entire rest of his family. In Taiwan, Shang Li met Ang's mother, herself an exile, and became principal of the high school that Ang himself eventually attended. As if fathers aren't already enough authority figures in Chinese culture. His parents hoped that their son would follow in their academic footsteps and become a teacher. But that wasn't Ang's gift or his destiny. Now, when you meet Ang Lee, he's such a quiet, gracious, unassuming man that you can't imagine he would have the drive and sharp elbows it takes to make movies. Well, at least according to cliche, it does anyway. But if you think it's hard to get here from Baltimore or to make it in Hollywood from where you're sitting tonight, how hard, what inner strength and resolve must it take to leave the cultural confines of a traditional Taiwanese home, move to the United States, go to the University of Illinois, no less, and then to film school at NYU? All that when entertainment is not traditionally held in high esteem as a profession in the culture of his birth. But Ang Lee was born resolute and with determination, and don't ever underestimate the degree of either within him. It's during Ang's time at NYU Film School in the mid-1980s that I would have guessed our paths should have first crossed. At that time, I was a young entertainment lawyer and producer working in New York. I wasn't well known enough for anyone to hire if they could afford to pay someone. So I began to work for free for young filmmakers who couldn't afford anyone. It's kind of like this. I wasn't worth paying for, and they couldn't afford to pay, so it was a perfect marriage. We futured each other. And in that time, just when the home video business was being invented, there happened to be an unrivaled burst of creativity coming out of NYU Film School. NYU in the early 1980s was to the new wave of American independent cinema what USC was in the 70s to commercial cinema. And in time, I worked for or with many of that movement's leading lights, including America's greatest defiant indie director, Jim Jarmusch, as well as Spike Lee and many other of Ang's classmates. Indeed, Ang Lee served as an AD and cameraman on Spike Lee's MFA thesis film at NYU, the immortal Joe's Bed-Stuy Barbershop, We Cut Heads. I'm sure Ang and I must have passed each other in Washington Square Park a dozen times, but we didn't meet until 1993. And by 1993, I had moved to Hollywood, done time at Columbia Pictures, and was running production for the Samuel Goldwyn Company. Ang had, after several reels of anguish and development hell, finally gotten his first feature film, Pushing Hands, made, and now had a second, the most unlikely, a most extraordinary, The Wedding Banquet. The Wedding Banquet, which is the middle film in what Ang calls his Father Knows Best trilogy, bookended by Pushing Hands on one hand and Eat, Drink, Man, Woman on the other, all of which star Sheng Liang as a father trying to come to terms with the defections of the younger generation. Certainly, that was something Ang himself was trying to come to terms with in his own journey. In any case, I adored The Wedding Banquet. I thought I saw in it the work of a true humanist, and despite its ultra-low budget look and feel, actually a great command of craft and craftsmanship. Well, we acquired the film at Goldwyn. It became a true indie hit, got nominated for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film, and Ang Lee was, after years of hard work, an overnight indie film success. The remarkable Sam Goldwyn Jr. helped finance Ang Lee's next film, Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, also a great success and also nominated for an Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. Together, those two films appeared to establish Ang Lee as the foremost interpreter of Asian culture clash on film. So as such, well, what did he do? He promptly went and made as his next film a period movie about Victorian England, Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility. Huh? He did what? Well, that brings us to what I think is the defining and distinguishing characteristic of Ang Lee, the filmmaker, and informs so much of the movie you'll see tonight, The Ice Storm. You see, directors, often like actors, get typecast into making certain genres or types of films. That can be because either they enjoy doing such films the most, or those are the movies they're the best at doing, or those are the films that studios will finance them doing because we know they can do it. Few and far between are the Robert Wises of the world, directors who can do drama, comedy, sci-fi, musical, and do them all well because of the depth of their craft. And fewer still are the directors in the modern era, after the death of the studio system, who have that capability and get that chance. Ang Lee is one of the few and the best. Consider his trajectory. No sooner had he finished explaining endlessly to the skeptical press, at least that is until they saw the masterful Sense and Sensibility, which was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, that yes, a Taiwanese-born man who had made only films in Chinese could in fact make a great movie about women in Victorian England. He had no sooner done that than he had to contend with the same questions on yet another zigzag. You see, after Sense and Sensibility, Ang was, in the way of our town, offered every period English drama imaginable. But instead, he chose to push again forward and to make a new kind of film for him. A tragic comedy set in the American suburbs in the swinging and not so swinging 70s, a period of time when Ang was actually in the Taiwanese military, I think. When you watch tonight's film and see the level of expert craftsmanship, the quality of work by actors who you know well but will rarely see surpass this level, and the skill with which the restrained emotions nonetheless seep to the surface and into your soul, you will put to lie the old assumption that an artist has to have lived his art. The truth is that some do, but the very best have instead only to understand the world and the characters they want to create, and then have the skill to do that.
Throughout the entirety of the miserable 18 holes on topics that are the supposed domain of my department. Yeah?
You're boring me. I have a husband. I don't particularly feel the need for another.
Tonight, it's the Connecticut of the 70s, of pathetic wife-swapping and miscommunication, of sadness on the shag carpet and desperation in the air. It is at once antithetical to his previous films, Sense and Sensibility. The social code wants to be rational and good, and the characters want to be bad. Whereas in The Ice Storm, the social code wants you to be bad, but actually the characters really prefer to be good. And yet, it's absolutely typical of his work in that it departs radically from anywhere he's been before. Tonight, it's Connecticut, 1973. But on another night, Ang Lee might take you to the pre-war South, the modern West, to the fantastic reaches of ancient China. But wherever Mr. Lee takes you, he does it with command, assurance, and above all else, humanity. He finds something to love in all his characters, and I find something to love in all his movies, especially tonight's film, the one and only film Ang Lee has made for Fox. So far, The Ice Storm. Enjoy. In a masterful stroke of cinematic storytelling, the ending of The Ice Storm that you just saw reprises the first scene in the film, but with a vast amount of new information that makes the viewer see it in a totally different way. Its understated power isn't revealed until we've taken the entire journey with these characters, each with a secret cross to bear that is, incongruously, soothed by being with family, the very people they've each been trying to escape for the whole film. It's that life-affirming, O. Henry-esque twist that initially drew Ang Lee to the story, along with the climactic moments that led up to it. Living up to the expectations of the prior generation is a universal theme and one that Ang experienced firsthand. He believed that if his early feature films hadn't been successful, his relationship with his father might never have improved, that he would never have forgiven him for having given up on a career as an educator. In a way, Ang returned like the prodigal son, but with a clutch of awards to prove his adventure outside the safety of his parents' world was a grand one. And just maybe, that kind of risk-taking is what makes him the bold, adventurous, and incredibly capable filmmaker we know him to be. And lucky for us at Fox, I said in the intro that Ice Storm was the only film Ang had made for us so far. You see, Ang is right now working to develop a screenplay for Fox based on Yann Martel's international bestseller, The Life of Pi. Again, an arena unlike any he has ever essayed before. Pi is the story of a young Indian boy, a tiger, and a boat. That is, maybe it's the story of that. It certainly is not like any other film I know of, and its very uniqueness and genre-bending challenges are what make it the kind of film that only a true virtuoso could pull off. Well, The Quiet Man from Taiwan is just such a virtuoso. And I truly hope that the movie gods are kind, and that one day, before too long, I get to introduce you here on the Fox Movie Channel to Ang Lee's second Fox film, The Life of Pi. But willy or nilly, I am his lifelong fan, and I encourage you movie lovers to devour anything Ang Lee makes.
Your toes cold? Come on, I'll carry you.
For Fox Legacy, I'm Tom Rothman. We'll see you next time.